Today we are in Rockford, Illinois, and we talk with Sandra Colbert, who is a writer writing about the history of ethnic Chicago, and also the leader here in the Lithuanian section of the Ethnic Heritage Museum in Rockford. So how did you become the caretaker of the Lithuanian section here?
Well, I always knew that this museum had a Lithuanian Gallery, and I finally made a point one Saturday to come and visit. And the minute I walked in the door, I told the ladies that I was half Lithuanian, and they were so thrilled because the director at the time had gone to a nursing home, so there was nobody to care for this gallery. And before I knew it, they talked me into this position. And I went to a board meeting and they voted me on the board, and so here I am.
So it's interesting that this Ethnic Heritage Museum of Rockford, it actually has just 6 ethnic galleries, yes? And one of these ethnic galleries is dedicated to Lithuania, so that shows kind of how important the Lithuanian community used to be here in Rockford, Illinois. But as I understand, it changed over the time, and right now you said that it's actually even difficult to meet another Lithuanian here. Yeah.
It's very difficult to meet any Lithuanians here because everyone is scattered, the society's gotten very homogenized, so there isn't that strong Lithuanian community that you might find in some places. So I find that, difficult.
You grew up in one very Lithuanian community and a huge Lithuanian community in the back of the yards district of Chicago.
Yes.
So that was the original district of Chicago stockyard workers.
Yes.
And Lithuanian workers were those who were described in the book Jungle by
Jungle,
authors.
yes, right.
And actually you wrote your own book about that district and your childhood.
Yeah.
So what inspired you the most, and what are your, let's say, most atmospheric stories of your childhood as a Lithuanian in the back of Yards district?
It was, and you don't realize it until you're an adult, what a unique place it was to live. So many people didn't speak English. They were speaking Lithuanian and Polish and Slovak, and it was just really, really very interesting. But as with all the churches over there, you went to the church of your ethnic background. So we were raised very Lithuanian, so we went to Holy Cross Church, Holy Cross School. We started, the way it worked, you were baptized at Holy Cross Church, you went to Holy Cross School. When you got married, you went to Holy Cross Church.
Holy Cross Church and School were Lithuanian.
Yeah, they were all Lithuanian.
A very impressive church. The church is larger than most Lithuanian cathedrals actually, and even for us coming from Lithuania, it's impressive to see a Lithuanian church like this in the middle of Chicago.
And you can imagine what it looked like, during the stockyards, because the houses there are all wooden shingled houses. There's no really nice houses. There are 2 flats and 4 flats. And out of this you got this incredible church. It's just incredibly beautiful, especially when all the lights are on. It's just something to see. But at the same point, they were competing with the Polish church. St. Joseph's was just as big. And then there was a Sacred Heart Polish church. So there was a competition almost for all these ethnic groups. One was going to outdo the other. But you went, I had friends that were only from Holy Cross. I didn't have friends who went to Sacred Heart or St. Joe's because you just stayed with your own group. And then over the years it did get a little different. But at the same point I went to Maria High School.
Yeah, so that was also Lithuanian high school.
Yeah, and when you died you went to Judaica's funeral parlor and you got buried at St. Casimir. So
Lithuanian cemetery, the largest Lithuanian cemetery outside Lithuania. Actually.
Yes, they didn't fool around when they started building things. And Holy Cross was incredible, and like you said earlier, it was built by the immigrants who worked in the stockyards, who gave their nickels and dimes. And I don't know how much the Diocese of Chicago contributed, but it's amazing that such a structure was built and in a neighborhood where everybody was just speaking very little English and getting by with whatever jobs they could get. And it was usually the stockyards, and it didn't pay well, and it was really, really hard work. And if they didn't work there, they worked somewhere else equally as difficult. So it's impressive when you think back to what these people had to do and how they succeeded.
Yeah, I think diocese usually contributed very little, if anything, and all these churches were built basically with Lithuanian labor and Lithuanian money, but it just shows how important it was to them to safeguard their ethnic heritage and to have their own separate church, because, well, to them, church was not only a building for religious activities, but also a building for all other ethnic
The community, yes.
Community,
yes, it
the
was a
community and ethnic
yes.
activities, and also the schools were parish schools, so they also belong to the parish.
Right. And in those little communities, my grandmother had cousins and relatives that also came from Lithuania and probably from her town, So it was really, really reinforcing the Lithuanian culture. It was so important for them that everybody speak Lithuanian. And now we never spoke Lithuanian in our generation, but my parents did, my uncles and aunts, they all spoke Lithuanian when they came to see my grandmother. So there was a little bit of both, the English and the modern America coming into in the 1950s and 60s. My grandfather lived to see a man on the moon, which every time I think about that is just amazing. That he came from some little village somewhere and lived long enough to see the man on the moon. So you had modern society encroaching and these people trying to keep their heritage intact.
So when did your Lithuanian grandparents came to America?
My grandmother came over in 1912, and the family story is, and I don't have any basis or documentation. My aunt told me it was an arranged marriage. And he was waiting for her in New Jersey, in Bayonne, New Jersey. So when she did go through Ellis Island, she went to Bayonne and married Antonis Caselius. Mm-hmm. And my aunt was born in Bayonne, and then they came to Chicago, and they all worked at the stockyards in some capacity. And my aunt, I was told by her, she was 12 years old when she was taken out of school to work at the stockyards also. My grandfather cleaned cars, the railroad cars that came with the animals. He was a cleaner. And my grandmother stuffed sausages. And according to the census, she was still there in the 1940s. So she started as a very young woman, raised 4 kids. Her only son went and fought in World War II, and he survived. He was there for 3 years. And my aunts and my mother, they all did well. But they all worked very, very, very hard.
And so here in this Lithuanian museum, like Lithuanian Hall in the Rockford Ethnic Heritage Museum, there are lots of Lithuanian memorabilia, such as Lithuanian symbols and Lithuanian fall costume and amber, which is like a very Lithuanian form of jewelry. And
the sashes, such beautiful sashes we have, and the artwork as well.
So a lot of things show the Lithuanian heritage to the people who came, who are the descendants of Lithuanian Americans. But for us coming from Lithuania, one of the most interesting things is to see these straw ornaments, because while straw ornaments are traditional to Lithuania, they are usually made of real grass straws. And here in America, and in this museum as well, one usually finds Lithuanian American straw ornaments which are made of drinking straws.
Yes.
So could you tell more about this Lithuanian American art form, and also about Anne Karaminas, who, as I understand, was a previous caretaker and also made most of these artworks?
Yes, Anna was amazing. From what I've read and from what I understand, they were having an exhibit at Midway Airport at Christmas time of different ethnic Christmas trees. And they wanted one of Lithuania. Well, nobody can get the straw like they had in Lithuania, where a needle would go through and you could make the straw ornaments. So what somebody said is, let's just use the plastic ones. And that's how it came to be. And they made hundreds and hundreds of these. Anna Karaminas, she probably made thousands of them. I mean, she made these of here. And she was a remarkable woman. Her husband is the one who who carved the shrine, and also the little village there. But the other remarkable thing that Anna did, aside from making the straw ornaments, is she lived for a while in New York, and she raised her own bees. And the wax from the bees, she made a nativity scene that we bring out every Christmas, and she carved it herself. So she not only raised the bees, she made the wax, and she was a carver and an artist. And we were really, really blessed that she came to Rockford and helped to put this all together with the other Lithuanians in the community who donated all of this.
I'm very glad to be here in this museum and know the fact that it continues the Rockford Lithuanian history, even though most of the Lithuanians here have moved out by now, and we were today in the Lithuanian church there, which is now Hispanic majority, and also a Lithuanian club, which also still exists, but most of the members there are actually not Lithuanians anymore, even though they are trying to keep the Lithuanian traditions as well. But we have marked each of these sites, including this Ethnic Heritage Museum, on our website, map.lithuania.com, and there you can discover more than 800 Lithuanian heritage sites all over Americas, including those that we have mentioned today, and even more of those that we did not mention. So I invite you to see that website, and if you are interested in more interviews such as this with people who take care of Lithuanian heritage in the Americas, I invite you to follow this YouTube channel.